Over the past 4 decades, Tom Cruise has turned Mission Impossible into one of the greatest action film series of all time, a franchise that continuously has pushed the possibilities of what a modern blockbuster could be, and found new terrifying ways to put Cruise into harm's way for our amusement. After an intriguing start to the series with a stretch of directors like Brian De Palma, John Woo, J.J. Abrams, and Brad Bird, Cruise found his match with Christopher McQuarrie, who has helmed this series since Mission Impossible Rogue Nation in 2015. Despite the majority of the films involving Cruise's Ethan Hunt being considered a rogue by the Impossible Missions Force, and despite the series pulling the same dang face mask trick on us over and over again, Mission Impossible series has been consistently exciting, and because of Cruise's dedication to bonkers stunts, this series has always felt more tactile, more real, more dangerous than your standard action film. The 7th and latest installment in this series, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, comes 5 years after the last film Mission Impossible Fallout, which felt like both a culmination of everything that came before it, and in many ways the pinnacle of what this series could be. Coming off that high, Dead Reckoning Part 1 has a lot to live up to, especially when you consider that over these last few decades, Mission Impossible has continuously set the bar high for itself and action films in general. Compared to other blockbuster action films, especially in a year that's given us several disappointments already, Dead Reckoning Part 1 is still an impressive feat from both Cruise and McQuarrie. But after the apex that was Fallout, and coming after some of the most impressive action films ever made, the newest film can't help but feel like somewhat of a disappointment. Dead Reckoning Part 1 acts as the beginning of the goodbye for Tom Cruise as this series' protagonist, while also setting up who could follow in his footsteps, and making this film a sort of jumping-off point for those new to the franchise. Dead Reckoning Part 1 has Ethan Hunt and the IMF trying to track down a sentient AI called the Entity, which would essentially give the owner power to control the world. However, this enemy that can be anywhere is unlike anything Hunt and his team have ever faced, leading Hunt to come face to face with Gabriel, played by Esai Morales, who share a past that made Hunt the man he is today. In order to stop the Entity, Hunt's mission involves finding 2 keys that, when combined, unlock something that seems extremely important to the Entity. On Hunt's hunt for the Entity and the keys, he is again joined by Luther, played by Ving Rhames, and Benji, played by Simon Pegg, and his paths cross once more with Ilsa Faust, played by Rebecca Ferguson. Hunt also meets Grace, played by Hayley Atwell, a thief who gets in over her head when she gets in the way of Hunt's goals. Dead Reckoning Part 1 also sees the return of Henry Czerny's Eugene Kittredge, who hasn't been in this series since the first movie, and introduces us to Paris, played by Pom Klementieff, who is hunting down Ethan on behalf of Gabriel, as well as Jasper, played by 𝐏𝐿, and 𝐷𝐿, played by Greg Tarzan Davis, who is also trying to hunt down Ethan but for different reasons. One of the most noticeable differences in this latest film almost right from the beginning is how convoluted and explained everything often feels. An early meeting scene has Eugene Kittredge explaining to Denlinger, played by Kerry Ells, and the audience exactly what the threat is, who Hunt is, and what the IMF does. And while it's clear this scene exists for newcomers to this series, it also is far heavier on the exposition than these movies usually are. While the film's major train set piece that has been teased forever does use more CGI than one would expect from a Mission Impossible film, it's the way that McQuarrie directs this sequence that makes it work quite well, as naturally, everything that could go wrong does go wrong. Mission Impossible has often relied on tension in these action scenes as we watch Tom Cruise do truly mind-boggling stunts for the amusement of the audience. Yet Dead Reckoning Part 1 makes this tension work even better outside the extravagant set pieces. For example, one scene at an airport balances new character introductions, Jasper and 𝐷𝐿 trying to find Hunt, while Luther and Benji have their own little side adventure. McQuarrie mehays all of these elements in a way that makes walking through an airport actually electrifying. Especially fun is Klementieff, who is gleefully malicious, as she drives over cars with joy and tracks down Hunt with viciousness. �W𝐻𝐻𝐻 is also a hilarious addition, acting almost as if he's seen one too many Mission Impossible movies himself, and attempting to rip off the face masks of Denzel Washington's enemy in 𝐈𝐻𝐿𝐼 3. Yet it's Hayley Atwell's grace that leaves the biggest impression, as she certainly feels like she could be where this franchise is heading, and Dead Reckoning Part 1 does a fine job showing us that this series would be in good hands with her at the helm. Whether or not that will be the case down the road is yet to be seen, but along with the return of Ferguson and Vanessa Kirby's 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐼 Morales, Dead Reckoning Part 1 certainly makes the case that the women in Ethan Hunt's life are far more interesting than Hunt himself. Dead Reckoning Part 1 shows that there's still plenty of gas in the tank, but maybe we're seeing that this series needs a shake-up to keep it as thrilling as it has been. Part 1 acknowledges a cliffhanger ending. The IMF objective, easily deduced in the beginning, is at last revealed for next summer's finale. The film could have been much shorter and achieved the same goals. The filler isn't unwatchable but honestly wears thin. The good news is Cruise and McQuarrie haven't lost the vital entertainment factor. The action scenes rule. They're not on par with Mission Impossible Fallout, but certainly doesn't disappoint. Okay guys, thanks for watching this review. Support me by clicking subscribe, like this video, and leave your opinion in the comment section. Bye.